Hello, everyone, and welcome to Self-Mastering in Language Learning. This is Nicolò, and I will be sharing this presentation with Elisa. She's a teacher with 20 years experience, language coach, mentor specialized in multilingual mentoring. She's running a platform called Speak from Day One with Elisa and creating online courses as well. Welcome, Elisa.
Thank you very much. And Nicolò, your coach for today, is he is a coach, and what I admire about him is that he really cares about what he does, and he's the best coach I have ever met, because he combines his scientific approach to his passion and to his dedication. Thank you, Nicolò.
Thanks for the nice words, Elisa. Yeah, and because we are the Polyglot gathering, so we know that many people are watching us and they are learning languages themselves autonomously as independent learners. And so we created this concept of self-mastery to help people who are learning languages their own and who are willing to find their own method to learn languages at the best. So that's what this talk is about. So in the first part, we're going to discuss about four important skills that we think all independent learners should have and should be able to master. And then we are going to give a practical example or a sample of how say a coach like us can guide you through a self-assessment that can help you understand where you are now with your skills and how to make say a path to improve your skills and to become better and better if you wish. And of course, you can also ask questions to us at the end. You feel free to write to us at any time. We'll try to keep some time at the end for questions. So I would say, Elisa, would you like to explain, say, the basic principles of self-mastery?
Yes, so behind this workshop, there are two main principles. The first one is that we really believe that anyone can learn any language. And the second principle is that everyone is different. Everyone has their own preferences, their own motivation and goals.
Yeah, that's a fantastic start. So, yeah, and what I wanted to share with you now, it's a bit embarrassing. So I have to admit that I failed to learn German. When I moved to Germany, I started to learn German as with traditional methods, right? And I couldn't learn as say well as I wished, just because I concentrated on my efforts on and time in the grammar exercises, and I attended a traditional course, and the class didn't work. And also from the psychological point of view, I wasn't, treating myself very, very well because of this, because I wasn't succeeding enough. And so I put myself into a stressful situation, and I couldn't learn. The situation was even worse. So, and I started to think, bad things about, okay, I'm not good enough, and things like this. So I went through a moment of struggle, and I realized I wasn't resourceful enough. So that's the thing I would like to share, and it's the result of an analysis we running together with Elisa. So if you want to be successful in learning any language, you need to find a method that suits you. So that's something that you can really enjoy doing, and something that you can do at your best, right? And in order to do so, you need to go through moments of struggle. And to overcome these moments of struggle successfully, you need to be resourceful. And in order to be resourceful, you need to know yourself and how you perform the learning process. That's the message behind self-mastery. And as I said in the beginning, we identified four most important skills that any independent learner should have and should master. And we're going to present the four of them. So the first one is the strategic thinking. it's about mastering your say projection into the future, thinking about what you want to achieve and how you're going to do this. And second skill is activities management, how you manage the things you do when you do this in the day, and how you switch from one to the other. And this particularly should be tailored to your specific needs and to your personality, right? There's no, say, list of activity that is suited to everyone, because we are all different, right? However, there are things we can do, everyone can do, because our brain works in the same way. Third important skill is time management. How you manage your time is fundamental to achieve goals in any kind, particular with it is true for language learning. And fourth, you need to master your daily practice, your daily routine, what you do every day to become to get closer to your goals and to achieve them. That's a very important skill, and we're going to talk a bit more extensively about them. So please, Elisa, would you like to start with the first one?
Yes, of course. So the first one is strategic thinking. So when you start learning a language, of course, it would be very useful if you ask yourself why you're learning this language. But more than that, what would you like to be able to do with this language? Of course, we would like to be able to do everything. But at the beginning, we have to make a choice which is going to direct us through our learning. It doesn't mean that we are not going to master all the skills in the end, but it means that if you know what is our highest priority, the chances that we that we stay motivated is much higher. Because if my end goal is speaking and I concentrate on reading all the time, then I might feel frustrated at some points because I don't see the progress I was hoping for. So if you know what you really want to achieve with your language learning, you can focus on specific activities, or you can decide, in this case, you can decide your highest priority. For example, once you know your highest priority, you can decide the type of activity that would help you get closer to your goal, for example. And it really depends, of course, on the level you are when you start this process. It can be applied to any level. For example, if you want to be able to speak as soon as possible, you can focus on words everyone needs. You can focus on verbs, especially on past and future tense, if that language has it, of course, because normally we talk about the future, our plans, our wishes, and about what we did. So I don't usually go and talk to a native speaker and say, I'm drinking. So normally I would be talking to this person about my own past experience or about what I would like to do. So what about meeting and so on. But of course, this relates to any other goal you might have. For example, if you want to pass a job interview, you can really start focusing on that. Also, at the beginning, of course, you will struggle more, but I understand that probably you don't want to learn a language for 2 years and then prepare for your job interview. Of course, your job interview cannot be perfect if you just started learning a language, but you can focus your language learning on that path so that you can achieve your goals as soon as possible. And there are some other examples. So like a working environment, if you want to write emails for work, you don't need to learn the language first and then start writing emails. You can look at many templates available and try to learn grammar, vocabulary, structures through that. And you can, of course, do it on your own. And partially, of course, it depends on the language. Of course, this is something which applies to all languages, but for some languages, something might be more difficult to apply. For other languages, easier. It really depends. But there is always a way to focus on your language priority. And then the other slide.
Yeah, so we also can identify which particular activity fits to any of the skills you want to train. For example, reading, listening, writing, and speaking, and focus on the options that you have. Right. So that's the second step in the strategic thinking skill.
Yes,
And so,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, of course, you might think, okay, I want to be able I want to listen to something in German, in Japanese, but how can you do it at best? How can you do it in a way that you can get closer to your goal as soon as possible? So it's not only about, okay, I want to be able to read, I want to be able to understand people, or I want to be able to write and so on. It's also about what activities can bring me closer to my goal, and which techniques I should use when I do that. Because I can watch a movie and I can watch it with subtitles, without subtitles, I can watch the entire movie, I can watch only like 3 minutes and concentrate on those 3 minutes. So it really depends on so many factors, and each technique will give you, let's say, an advantage, will give you will benefit you in some way. So if you decide your priority and you know how to work with the different activities and what the options are, you can go to step 2.
Yeah, so the step 2 is still activities management.
Yes.
Do you wanna
Yeah,
explain this
sure,
concept?
sure. So once you know what your priority is, and what the technique, what the techniques are that can bring you closer to your goal, you need to select specific resources according to your own preferences and lifestyle. Why preferences and lifestyle? Because if you do it according to we don't feel the same way the whole day, every day of our life. There are moments where we feel very happy, there are moments where we feel exhausted. So if you divide those activities into categories, like activities that I want to do when I'm exhausted, activities that I want to do when I feel motivated, and you divided them into those categories, and you have them ready before you want to start, the chances are that you will really stick to your routine. You will really do what you plan to. Because let's say that you come home exhausted, and you say, okay, I really want to study that language, but then of course you feel exhausted. You don't want to take a book. Most probably you don't want to have to take a book and read all the exceptions in a language. So you can really divide that according to your lifestyle. I don't know, Sundays I have more time, Mondays I don't have any time, so I want to do something very enjoyable just to keep in touch with the language. And so the reason why activity management is very important is because you avoid wasting time on decision making, which is very important if you have if you want to read, or if you have read something about how our brain works. It's really lots of processing when we have to make a decision. What am I going to study now? And it already takes so much energy that it would be better that you would have chosen it already in advance. Then you can start learning immediately, and you focus on learning. You can stay motivated because you know that you chose your activities, and they are appropriate for that moment of the day. So you know that they will work, and you remove impediments because you already decided in which moment you might be doing a certain type of activity.
Yes, and so this brings us to the third skill, that is time management. We are going to have a practical session after that. So that's a guidance for you to run a self-assessment of your time management skills. You may be very good already managing your time, of course, but everyone can use some guidance to improve. And that's why we are going to give you a sample of how the path to your self-mastery could look like in future. And the fourth skill is what you do every day. So once you run through the first 3 steps, you can actually create your own daily practice on the basis of what you've learned from yourself in assessing the first 3 skills, right? So you don't have to start big. You can start small, because it will help you make things sustainable, and you can increase the chances to succeed because no one wants to introduce a dramatic change in their life and suddenly change everything. But if you add small changes, in the end, the difference would be big. So you can think of your life like a line, and then if you want to apply a change, you can start small, and by taking consistently these small steps, you can actually achieve big goals and big changes in your life. But you don't have to do all in once. So why? Because all human beings have a stronger resistance to changes. That's the truth. So we like certainty. We are made of certainty. And that's why we don't have to force ourselves into a big change, but we can start small and work with the consistency for a certain amount of time in order to be able to achieve these changes. And maybe you may need a trigger that helps you, fight this resistance to change. And so, what this is about the daily practice. The first concept. The second concept is that you don't wanna stick to the same daily practice forever, right? So you need to do enough, to plan for some time, but you don't have to overdo, because you're then going to be back to analyze what you did and understand how it worked for you. In terms of both technical achievements, and also emotional emotional experience that you had. So you can improve your daily practice if you want, or you can simply analyze it and take things out that would make your life better and your learning experience better. Today, there is no time to talk extensively about all this. So we decided to offer 4 more workshops focused on the self-mastery skills. So if you want to have information about this, or you want to attend these workshops, please go to this page and register to get to the mailing list to get information about this. It's as simple as it is. You give us the email address and your name, and we get in touch with you after the Polyglot gathering to give you information about how to access to the workshops. And we are not going to spam you with publicity or advertisements or offers and anything. So we are coming now to the practical part of the coaching guidance to self-assess your time management skill. I'm going to explain how this is going to work very soon. Time management is about asking yourself what you can achieve if you only had more time available. But the real question is that the truth is actually that no one gets more time. Everyone has the same amount of time. One day is made of 24 hours, 1 hour 60 minutes, and a minute of 60 seconds. That's it. You need to sleep, of course, and then the rest of the day is available to you. So achieving a goal is not about having more time in a day, but actually making the best use of the time you have available to be resourceful enough and to make this time available for what matters for you. And the concept we are going to use is probably a very generic one. So how you start from the idea and you transform this idea into a success is through planning and strategy. But we don't have to overdo on planning. I'm not say fond of do a lot of planning. I like a real life. And so we're going to give 2 general tips for this. So time planning should be more in the direction of focusing on the right things, define objectives and actionable plan for you to be able to learn, right? And second is the technique that I learned myself and I apply myself, and I also suggest to coaches and students, is to capture. So when you do the planning, try to capture the most important things very fast, and try to cluster them in areas so that they will help you. These areas will help you assess which kind of activities you can do related to any area you're interested in. For example, work, sport activities, any kind of interest that you have. You can define and plan according to what you like the most. And if you follow this path, basically you are going to focus on the most important things for you. That's the way to simplify your learning approach, and make it full of things that really matter for you. That's the way in which you can best use the time you have available. We want to achieve this say time targets in our life in general, but also in the learning process, right? You can learn successfully something if you're working in a zone that's where exactly you spend your time doing things that fulfill you, and that you do because you're working towards your goals. Ideally, you want to spend your, say, 100% of your time in this zone where you focus things that matter most to you, because they are the most important to you. But of course, that's not realistic. So let's say that if you spend more than 50% on this zone, in this zone, then you are going to be successful. But our target should be a bit more than this, should be 65% at least. And that's the reason why this should be like this, is because there are things that happen in our lives that we cannot plan. Let's say that if you can tolerate 20% of your time being invested in things you cannot plan, you still are focused, okay? Then there are other two zones which are very important. The zone in which you are learning and you are stressed, and the zones in which you are learning but you are exhausted, right? We want to limit these two zones. I was telling the story about myself. I was learning in a stressful situation all the time because I was putting the stress on me. So that's not the proper way to learn, right? I learned it myself. I have experience of other people, the same, similar experiences. So we want to limit these stressful circumstances to a 10% of the time. Sometimes it's good also in the sport, have some stress, but we don't want to get exhausted. Yeah, the last zone is the time when you are exhausted, when you actually need a break, right? You need to say take some time off and reconnect to yourself with your goals. So you cannot learn anymore because you have done already too much. Okay, now it's time to start, say, the practical part where we focus on, say, questions, and you are going to self-assess your skills. So please grab a piece of paper or a document to write something. And we are going to drive through this exercise. So 1 minute each slide now. So please try to answer the following question and be honest with yourself. So if you want to be good in time management, you need to ask yourself if you're using your time in spending your time in on time sucking activities every day. So things like, I don't know, I mentioned watching TV as a time sucking activity. If you're doing this for say learning language, of course that may be different, but maybe there are many examples of things we do every day and that are bringing us no value at the time during which we are not working on our goals and our specific objectives. So please try to assess yourself. If you're spending 20-25% of your time, we give you yourself a 1. If you're spending from 0 to 5% on this, please give yourself a 5. And try to understand and make a list of the things you do every day that are draining your time. Second question, give yourself a score on this one. So how many times do you go and check your emails? The emails is checking emails is just an example. There are things we do that distracts us from the main goals we have, right? So I take the emails because we all do this, right? We all go and check emails. But if you are the kind of person that checks every notification, goes and reads email, is different. This situation is different from who can instead check it like on a regular basis. You have your own. You can make your own decision. When I do, I go and check my emails. Can you time box them? This activity in 2 or 3 times per day, for example, right? So according to the frequency of this distraction, you can assess yourself. giving a score from 1 to 5. Third question is, how do you react to distractions? Everyone has, of course. Do you get distracted, right? When something pops in, it can be, of course, the example of the emails before, but it can be any other thing that happens in your life. Do you get distracted by other things in your daily experience, and how often? Does it happen sometimes that you get distracted, or is it more frequent? Or are you the kind of person that cannot accept any distraction? When you are focused on learning, for example, you cut everything. You don't let anything in, and you just focus on what you're doing at the moment, right? According to this, again, a score from 1 to 5. Question number 4. How so is your relationship with your mobile? Are you the kind of person that takes say long sessions with the mobile, and how many in a day, right? Of course, from here we should exclude from this analysis things, situations like okay, you're working maybe with the mobile, so you need to talk a lot on the mobile, or you want to learn a language for your mobile. So this is not the kind of things we are targeting here. We are more thinking about actual, misuse of the time. So doing with the mobile things that really don't bring value to your life, to your goals. If you have many of these long sessions, then you are investing probably something like 1 hour of time per day, or maybe 2 hours per day, in activities that are not bringing you value. And look, I am a fond of technology, so I would say the mobiles have changed our life and can improve it, but they can also be an obstacle to achieve goals in many situations. So again, a score from 1 to 5, depending on how many times per day you check your mobile and you have long sessions. Question number 5. Everyone has to deal with draining or very demanding tasks. So how do you approach them? Do you feel overwhelmed and find difficult to even start doing them? Or say, do you feel overwhelmed immediately after starting? Or do you get exhausted before completing a demanding task? Or can you actually focus a long time on a demanding task, and when you finish, you actually give everything, and you felt or you feel exhausted by this? Or can you keep control also on draining tasks like this, and to chunk them down and do these tasks, say, in smaller pieces, so that you don't get exhausted? Question number 6. How often do you need to take breaks? This tells you a lot about your ability to master your time, right? If you need to take a break every 10 minutes, there is something happening there, right? Is it because you're, say, draining too much energy doing things? Or is it because what you do during the break is not rewarding enough, for example, right? Then maybe you can find other ways to take this break, right? I have an example of a friend who takes breaks very often because he's a smoker, so he needs to smoke very often, and it happens, right, in life, to get also these sort of addictions. And yeah, if I would need to assess him, I probably would give him here something like between 1 and 2, because he smokes very frequently. But of course, there are also good examples of people who can take a break only at specific times, and can have a very long working sessions or learning sessions. So it depends on the person, right? Question number 7, the last one, before we wrap up. So how do you lean on others for support? How often, under what circumstances? If you take some time to think about moments of struggles, right? We all have. You may had the opportunity to, accept somebody else's help because someone could give you a shortcut to it. And while being, say, being stubborn sometimes can be a good skill when it comes to learning difficult things. When it comes to time management, okay, this is not, say, the best quality, right? Maybe this gives you satisfaction because you can do this yourself, right? But from the time management perspective, of course, you wanna find an efficient way to get the same result, right? And that's why if you can lean on others for support, and you even try to ask for support when you don't know that the other person can help you, that's when you get the maximum score, right? Well, if you insist on trying and trying and trying, actually you could probably find a better way to invest the time you're spending there, right? So summarizing, if you went through this exercise of self-assessment, you ended up in one of these 5 levels. And so it's difficult to comment on level 2, 3, or 4 because it depends on how you answer the questions. So I'm going to comment only on level 7 because it's straightforward. If you so I'm going to summarize right here. If you ended up in the number 1, it's because you are spending a lot of time in time-sucking activities. But I want to bring up, say, a moment of reflection to everyone, because the 5% time, okay, in a day represents basically 30 to 45 minutes in a day, right? So if we can move from one class to the other in time-sucking activities, right? If we can spend less time, 5% less time during the day in time-sucking activity, what we can achieve is to free up something between 30 and 45 minutes a day, and that means basically 15 to 20 hours a month. And if we use all this time to learn something new, in probably 6 months, we can even start speaking in another language, right? That's as simple as it is. And this is just because we decide at some point that we want to focus on one small step, right? Spend less time in time-sucking activities. But it can also be, of course, done in any other of these examples, right? Checking emails less frequently, improving the focus of the day by doing a small daily planning of sessions. Taking the mobile out of certain areas of our life and being able to keep control of technology somehow, right? And use it instead of being used by technology. Or making ourselves aware of how much how much time and how much energy we need to waste, basically, because when we approach a demanding task, we actually, waiting for the right moment to start, and then this never happens. So why don't we instead create, for example, a trigger to make this step easier and less energy demanding? Or things like taking less frequent breaks, but find a way to make them more rewarding so that we can actually go back to learn or to work or whatever else we do in our lives and be re-energized instead of being exactly in the same condition or even worse than when we decided to take the break. And also very important is how understand what is behind the resistance to accept others' help and support, because this is a fundamental step to free up a lot of our time. And I imagine this is also a specific step that one may need to take under guidance, especially because it comes down to knowing ourselves more and knowing things of ourselves that sometimes we don't want to really admit with ourselves. It happens to everyone. So now it's time to wrap up. So I would like to have again Elisa with me on the screen. I hope you enjoyed the exercise. And yeah, so as I said at the beginning, because we are the Polyglot Gathering and we know who is online with us today is most likely, say, an independent learner of languages. And so we came up with the idea of proposing a workshop based on these four fundamental skills to master the ability to learn by learning, basically, right? So we talked about the four skills. The first one is strategic thinking. Elisa talked about this, what you do to achieve your goals and how. And the second skill was activities management, what you really do and when you do it on the basis of your specific and personal experience. Time management, we talked about this. And daily practice, what you do every day to get closer to your goals. So, as I said, again, there will be four more self-mastery workshops where we spend the necessary time to guide everyone through the assessment of each of these skills. And also, if you are interested in getting to know more about this, please get in touch with us and go register on this page, giving just the email and the name. I see there are now questions coming, so I'll cut this one. So we would love to get some interaction with you guys. Thank you so much for being with us. These are our contact. So yeah, I can take one question. What do you do if you start off exhausted, don't have a lot of energy to spare to begin with? How do you motivate yourself? Yeah, that's a very interesting topic. I can spend probably only 1 minute on this. However, say if you start exhausted, so the question is really what happens before that, right? So if you're talking about the beginning of your day, of course, that's very interesting. I would say you should try to explore what makes you feel exhausted already at the beginning of your day. It happened to me in a certain period of time, and to other people I know, of course, and I help them as I help myself. It is not really super easy to give you advice without knowing the specific situation. Say, if you think about instead a session where you feel exhausted, then the best thing is to start reconnecting with yourself. So reconnecting with your emotion, right? If you are exhausted, it's because something happened in your life or in your day, in your, say, in the moments before this, that drain a lot of energy from you. So try to start reconnecting with yourself. For example, I call it coming back home, meaning when I'm really exhausted, I need to really take a break, put on some relaxing music, breathe, and really start reconnecting with my emotions so that I say gain again some energy from the exercise of breathing, for example. That's something that works with many people.
Yes, I would like to add a very small thing to that. So I really think it works, and it's really worth a try. I also wanted to say that after doing that, if on that day you're particularly exhausted, choose an activity which makes you happy instead of draining your energy. And on a day you are less exhausted, you do something more demanding. On the day, maybe, I don't know, I like Greek. If I'm exhausted, I put a Greek song and I try to sing along, for example. So I feel happier afterwards, and I won't feel more drained. And if you think that at night you are always exhausted, it's better that you think that you try to plan a moment in the day where you are not exhausted yet, in order to concentrate also on other types of activities, because variety, using different channels, really helps you bring your language learning forward. So maybe you think, okay, at least once a week I will wake up 10 minutes earlier and do that. If you're not a morning person, you can do it in a lunch break. So, but try to find at least one or two moments during the week where you can also concentrate on the types of activities.
So, Elisa, would you like to take the question, how do I motivate myself when I've been studying for a long time? For example, for months and months, as I did in my case, and I don't see real progress.
I think it's a very common problem. And honestly, I really think it depends on what we focus on. So there are several factors. Can be so it's there is not enough time to answer with everything I would like to say. But for sure, one of the main reasons why we don't see progress is because we don't focus on the right things which make us progress. Let's say that or we don't use the right technique doing that activity, carrying out that activity. For example, if my aim is speaking and I read all the time, I can, through reading, you can improve many things, but you cannot improve, at least not directly speaking. So it seems obvious, but I often say that if you want to learn how to drive, you can read a manual, but then you have to drive yourself. And so this is why if you don't see progress, most probably it's because you should try to understand, also through guidance if you prefer, what activities will bring you the highest benefit. Because when you focus, for example, when I learn languages because I want to talk to people. So for me, highest priority is speaking. And when I know that in order to be able to speak, I need certain words that everyone needs. Everyone needs. For example, I cannot get by if I don't know words like today, tomorrow, this morning, this weekend. I cannot get by if I don't know how to express future tense, past tense. I know I cannot get by if I don't know the words related to my hobbies. So this is why this is what I focus on. And if you focus on your life, your hobbies, your interest, and then of course, if you, what I hear most often is people who learn word lists, but those word lists are not your words. If they are your words, fine, perfect. But if they are not your words, then of course you wouldn't be able to talk about your life. And the second thing is that words are fine, but depending on the language you want to learn, you cannot just put words together. You need language structures. You need to know how to put them in a sentence. And in case languages have cases, you also have to understand at least the principle behind it in order for people to understand what you want to say. Sorry, it was a bit long, Nicolò. If you want to
That's
ask another
fantastic.
question.
Thanks. No, it was very complete answer. So, yeah, I would like to take another question about what if someone say cannot solve a problem and do not know who they can lean on for help. That's a very interesting question. So I have a very original example of what I learned myself and I apply with people and coaches. So yeah, one thing you can do is to call in what we call in psychology, we call them archetypes, right? So there are traits of personality that you have in yourself, right? So you don't necessarily have to go out and lean on others, right? Especially if you don't know. One exercise you can do, you can exactly call in, for example, the most original part of you, right? The most lovely part of you, some of you ladies, and play with this. It's an exercise that if you come to the workshop, we can do together. And of course, it's successful if you apply this to the right problem that you have in that moment, right? But this can, say, free more resources than you think because they are inside you. And sometimes this just really helps to overcome and be more resourceful. And another question was about small time windows. So how can I make use of small time windows if this is what I have in my life. Yeah, we all have, right? Very packed and busy lives. So the strategy I would recommend is actually to exactly align with the goals that you really care the most about. So if you have a little time, you need to invest this time in a very smart way. Otherwise, your time will be wasted, and then you're not going to use this consistently for this goal, right? So because you want to see results. And so I would say you need to follow these steps to align your goals and your purpose with the technique you're using. We only have 1 minute left, so I have to rush on this topic, but it's very interesting because it's at the core of this. I think it's possible to learn any language in even 5 minutes a day if you do the right things. You need to spend, and say, sometimes you need to spend a bit of your time in do some planning and do some self-reflections in order to use this time very effectively at the best. But you don't need to do over planning, or you don't need to learn hours and hours every day to achieve your language goals.
I think time is up.
Yes.
Thank you
So,
so much for
thank
joining
you.
us today. I hope you enjoyed this workshop.
And appointment to the next workshops. So please keep in touch with us. Bye bye.
Bye bye.